Now, although people may associate gunnery training with simply being in the simulator and shooting at simulated targets, there's a little bit more to be done in terms of deft manipulation. Now, up over my left shoulder is something that may be familiar to American trackers. You may know it as a worm board. It probably has some sort of official name like gunnery tracking tracing diagram, but it's a worm board. So the idea is you place your crosshair on one end of the line and you simply track the course of the line till you get to the end, and then do it the next one, do it the next one. It gives you a little bit of practice in high fidelity manipulation. The Belgians had a slightly improved version of this. They called it the ZMB board. And what they did with this was it allowed you to give you a little bit of feedback as to how you're doing. That is pretty objective and not just after the fact the commander going, yeah, you kind of went a little high on the second squiggle. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. I was watching you through the gunner's sight. No, I didn't. Well, if it's right in front of you, you can't argue it. And here's how they did it. This is the tracking board, or you want to call it the honesty trace, perhaps. It's a very, very simple little idea. So what they have done is they've invented this contraption that bolts onto the gun. On this is a little spring-loaded swivel arm. It extends down. They place a backboard and a piece of white paper on the backboard. You then insert a pencil, screw it in place, and as the gunner is tracking the ZMB, or whatever it is, but they usually use the ZMB because it's got a combination of angles and curves, the gun would trace exactly what the gunner was inputting into the gun on the piece of paper. Genius, simple, and you can't argue it. Now, such things did theoretically exist in the US, but you would only ever see them used for things like jump firing tests, where it will be placed to the side of the tank. As the tank fired, you could see the pencil mark showing just how much the tank had jumped, but I've never seen one used for gunnery. It's really a very good idea, but it's not the only thing they came up with. Another device that they came up with is called the pricker. This is very obviously a homemade contraption. I mean, I'm looking at the thing, they've welded it to a sprocket ring. But what they basically do here is they try to replicate some scenario out in the distance. So the examiner or the NCOIC or whatever will set up the targets according to what they can see out yonder. They could be tank hulks, they could actually be tanks that somebody put out there, or specific types of target like a church steeple, a house, a parked tractor, what have you. So what they would do is they would adjust these little items here, these little frames, so that as the gun was aiming correctly at one of these distant targets, a contraption which would come down and would have this on the end of it would be lined up directly in front of one of these frames. So if you wanted to say shoot at the tractor, you would aim at the tractor, and then they would adjust these frames. So, okay, is the gun aiming at the tractor? Yes, okay, fantastic. And they lift it up right about here. And they would bolt it into place, freeze it into place. You would then put your student into the gunner seat, and rapidly you would tell him the Belgian equivalent of gunner, heat, tractor, traverse right, steady on, and the gunner will traverse right and he'll come onto the tractor and it'll adjust his lay, and then he will push the trigger and a little needle will come out and prick a hole in the piece of paper or cardboard or whatever that they had in front of this pad here. And then, okay, next target, tractor, traverse left, drop one form, there we go. And again, he would fire the pricker. And what would happen basically is at the end of the exercise, he'll come out, he'll have a look at the pieces of paper with the holes in them, and he'll see, was he on target? Was he consistent? Did he have a good point of aim? Were all the little holes in the same area? So gunnery training on the cheap.